Okay, so welcome everybody to the Investing in London seminar with Barratt London and our panel of partners this evening. Thank you very much for joining, and I hope you find this evening insightful, informative, and valuable. As the UK's largest house builder, we've partnered with some of the leading property professionals across the industry to bring you some excellent insight into the market and to help you navigate through the current market conditions. So just to introduce our panel of speakers this evening, we have Mark Homer, who's the co-founder of Progressive Property. He'll be giving you an update on the market and some advice to help you navigate through the current market conditions. We'll then be hearing from Rachel Geddes, from the Managing Director of the Mortgage Advice Bureau, giving an update on products in the market at the moment across all different lenders and what options there are for various types of buyers. We'll then move on to our portal expert, Alex Rose, Director of New Homes at Zoopla, to give insight into the local market and also search trends and insight from the portal. I believe the most popular portal across the UK at the moment. And then we move over to Mark von Grunder, Director of Benham & Reeves, to hear a little bit about the rental market and also the other services that Benham & Reeves offer investors in London. So just as a brief insight, for those of you who don't know Barratt London, we're part of the Barratt Developments Group, the UK's largest home builder by volume of sales. And the Barratt London division has been operating for over 30 years, regenerating developments across the capital. At the moment, you can see the projects that we have live across London, starting in the top left-hand corner. So Eastman Village in Harrow and Wealdstone, then moving over to Hendon and Ridgeway, covering that north corridor. Very popular for younger investors or people looking for that opportunity to get better value for money, but some great transport links into central London via the Metropolitan and Jubilee lines. We then have Hayes Village in West London and Western Circus, both established developments. Western Circus just has a couple of properties left now. It's been extremely successful. And Hayes Village, the old Nestle factory, which is a wonderful regeneration scheme. And let's face it, who doesn't want to live in a chocolate factory? Then in South London, we have Springfield Place, wonderful regeneration. Again, beautiful green spaces and parklands in the Tooting Bec area. And then we have New Mill Quarter, which has been a fantastic development in south of London near to Hackbridge. Brilliant location and great connections into central London, just 20 minutes into London Bridge. Then going towards the east, we have Bermondsey Heights, one of our newest developments. Fantastic regeneration location and a very exciting project that we launched earlier this year. And then in the east of London, we have Upton Gardens, which has been a fantastic project, delivering over 1,000 units to the Upton Park development area. So as you can see in the teal circles just above the names of the developments, we're achieving some excellent rental returns at the moment. The rental market, as you'll hear from Mark and some of our other experts across the panel, will give you some great confidence that the market for rentals across London is extremely strong. You can see in West London and Hayes Village, even up to 6%, which is fantastic considering we have interest rates significantly below that. So some good positive cash flow into the rental market at the moment. And across the board, really very, very strong returns. 5.6 up in Eastman Village. Ridgeway Views, a little bit more of a lifestyle development, but again, still very good, strong rental return at 4.8%. Following the values of Barratt Homes, we try to deliver good value for money for property, property for people to live in. And because of that, we've tried to reduce the amount of services and service charge across all of our developments. That's really driving these higher investment returns for investors. And as you'll hear from some of the other panelists across this evening, we don't compromise on quality. We don't compromise on community. but we try to keep our prices as low as possible, and also our service charges as well. So some great projects right across the capital, and not only great rental returns, but also across the regeneration projects, some great opportunity for capital growth as well. So as far as the market at the moment, of course, there has been some uncertainty, and there has been some difficult conditions, particularly after the mini budget, but we're seeing some really attractive conditions back into the market, and we've delivered some really exciting buying schemes across our developments to help homeowners and also investors get the best value for money. So whether it's deposit contributions, whether it's Help to Buy, which is coming to an end now, Parent Power, helping to unlock that family equity, or even key worker deposit contributions as well. We've got lots of different schemes across the different developments. We have Deposit Unlock, we have Armed Forces deposit contributions, and Deposit Boost as well. So some really attractive incentives and investments across all of our projects to help investors maximise their returns. So I'll hand over to Mark now for a little bit of an insight into the London market as we see it at the moment. And then we'll have a Q&A session at the end where we'll bring our panelists all into the forefront, and we'll answer all the questions that you have throughout this session, and also the questions that we've received already from the registrants for the webinar. So if you have any questions as we go through the presentations, please do drop them in the comments box, and we'll try and get through as many of them as possible at the end, hearing directly from the industry experts and the people with the knowledge to help you. So I'll hand over to Mark, and he'll take you through his presentation on the market update.
Thank you, Stuart. Next slide, please. So who am I? So I've been doing this for around 20 years, developing, investing in mainly residential, some commercial buildings as well. Developed about 600,000 square foot of space, over 1,000 units, something like, my portfolio is something like 40 million now. And we manage about 1,300 tenants, residential tenants in-house in our letting agency. And I've written sort of 7 books on this, various different languages around the world. So next slide, please, Stuart, into London. So London is clearly, you know, nobody needs telling what an established and renowned sort of property market London is, and with such a sort of strong legal backdrop. Clearly it's had a few issues the last, I don't know, predominantly since 2016. Brexit probably didn't put it onto the best footing in terms of Europeans leaving, and various other sort of the rental market probably went into reverse a little bit, and certainly more recently, as Stuart mentioned, with interest rates and certainly the issues surrounding the sort of trust budget, has meant that prices have in some areas gone backwards a little bit, and you know, probably gone sideways sort of largely since 2016, depending on where you are. Obviously every area is a little bit different. For me, that offers quite a big opportunity. When prices sort of go sideways or don't go up too much, but rents grow, and rents have been growing in a big way, you'll probably, you know, if you look at somewhere like London, or, you know, we're in Peterborough, we're sort of 45 minutes north of London. We tend to sort of get the back end of the growth that starts, I suppose, within the M25. We've seen rents grow something like, I don't know, 30% since 2016. I think London is in that zone, and I don't see any reason why rents are going to suddenly stop growing so strongly. They're keeping up with sort of interest rates. You've got, you know, quite a big shortage of supply. In fact, a huge shortage of supply, especially in London. Very little land in order to build on. Very, very strongly growing population again now. You know, and if you look historically, that hasn't really been any different. if you look back to 1990, a property at 100,000 is now worth 580,000, which is a 480% capital growth according to the nationwide building society. So very, very big shortage of land, there's finite supply, and this is going to be exacerbated in the coming years. According to Savills, there are 30% fewer homes available to rent in the third quarter of 2022 than before the pandemic. The Greater London rents have been increasing at the fastest rate in the UK. It's over 15% in the fourth quarter. If you have a look, according to the Land Registry, since 1995, if you have a look at a house price of £100,000 in Greater London, you'll see how by 2022 that same house was about 700,000. Similar sort of property, but obviously cheaper. In sort of England and Wales as an average, let's say that started at about 60,000 in 95. That's only grown to about 350,000 in 2022. So you can really see the acceleration and how those lines pull away from each other over time. And I think that's just, a symptom or sort of what happens when there is such a lack of supply versus a big demand. Next slide, please. So where is all this going? Since sort of 2016, lots and lots quite a few people have left. I think that's certainly gone into reverse now. You probably noticed that Boris did a big deal with India, and there are various other post-Brexit immigration deals which are fueling population increase in the United Kingdom. House price growth in Greater London, clearly it's expected, for the reasons I've just mentioned, to grow more than other areas of the country. And I suspect that's probably in the region of 3% capital growth for next year, and rents probably in the region of 5% for 2024. Clearly, when capital growth doesn't increase at the same rate as rents, you get increased yields. So I think those rental yields that Stuart was talking about earlier, which by the way are particularly good because they're in regeneration areas, which should give you increased capital growth opportunities over and above what the wider market is doing. I think in those areas the rental yields are likely to grow further and faster, just because the areas will be changing so much, from a sort of off a relatively low base, and as they improve, more people sort of want to move into the area. Gentrification means that rents will usually outpace sort of other areas. And I think a huge thing, which maybe doesn't get talked about enough, is what George Osborne did when he basically, it's called Section 24, when he effectively said that not all landlords could offset all the mortgage interest against the rent that they receive unless they purchase their properties into a limited company. So what that's meant is lots and lots of sort of hobby and accidental landlords have come out of the market because they maybe haven't got enough properties, or they're not able to utilize the benefits of a limited company, or they don't necessarily know sort of how to utilize it or what to do. What this has meant is that there's been less supply, less landlords coming into the market, and this has pushed rents higher and higher. And I don't think this is going away anytime soon. In fact, I think it will, accelerate. So that's been a sort of big change that we're all seeing. So onto the next slide, please, Stuart. So new builds. What is different and special about new builds? Well, the first UK property I bought in think it was 2003. It was actually a Barratt home, and I bought it to rent out. I didn't actually end up renting it out. I flipped it because the market was going up quite a bit. But what I learned at that point was I bought it quite early on in the development, before the prices had sort of started rising. It was an early, I bought it off plan. It was early in the sort of delivery in the build phase. So I feel like I got a cheaper price, and I did quite well out of it. So I think that's something to focus on. I think regeneration is a big thing. If you can find sites that are changing, where the sort of local landscape and the street scene is improving, and maybe there's a regeneration company being formed by the local authority, which is creating sort of new transport links, infrastructure, new schools. I think that's a sort of a big deal and something to focus on. Certainly with new builds, you can often pick the layouts that you could add value to, i.e. you may decide to rent houses out by the room. We've done a lot of sort of letting individual units. I started thinking about 2005 renting properties out by the room, and then we developed it into a co-living model where we would develop a property, make all of the rooms en suite, very high end, instead of a sort of little local room renting at maybe 450, 500 a month, we can get something like 800 a month and really drive the yield. I mean, I can get 15% plus gross yields. I think that's possible to find if you find the right new build property, something that you can add value to. That's always something that I look for. It's not always best to go for the more expensive properties. Often the cheaper ones have got the higher yields. If you look for properties in the lower third of the development price range, that can help you improve your cash flow, and might mean you need to put down less money as a deposit when you're purchasing the property, because there's a higher rent, higher income to support a larger mortgage in proportion to the purchase price. And I think really with apartments, you need to just focus on the service charge. I think ground rent's largely gone now, but just understand what those service charges are. I'm more of a freehold man, but apartments can work as long as you understand all the costs.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, just a couple of things to highlight. So the regeneration effect is really quite significant when we look across some of our larger projects. One of our most successful projects that's live at the moment is Hendon Waterside in northwest London. And if we look at the prices from when we launched the project up until today, our customers who bought right at the beginning of the development have achieved over 130% increase in value of their property. So they're really driving some excellent rental returns there. And you did highlight as well the layout. So of course, across Barratt London projects, we've optimized all of our layouts. So we have great living spaces. All of our properties have outdoor space, whether it's a balcony or terrace or garden. But we've tried to incorporate all of the requirements of modern living. So some great storage solutions. And we've also got a fantastic and exciting new partnership with IKEA, the UK's largest furnishing provider, to help provide design services and low-cost furniture packs for investors as well. So at the end of the presentation and Q&As, we'll show a little video to introduce the partnership that we've recently launched with IKEA and across the Wembley IKEA store, where you can actually see some of the Barratt London layouts, but also you can see the IKEA furniture packs in situ in our developments as well. So some really interesting insight there. I think that the interest rates is a really good point. There's a lot of talk in the press at the moment of rising interest rates, but there's very little talk of that stability of low cost borrowing, which has been in place for decades. And in fact, following the GFC, we've seen almost a sort of free money market that has, as Mark mentioned, after the mini budget, that did go up quite significantly. And a lot of the lenders kind of pulled back from the market and were a little bit more conservative. But we've seen those rates drop, and we've also seen the lenders come back to the market very competitively with higher loan to value offers, and also some new products to try and widen the market. So I'm just going to move straight on to the Q&A session. So we have, as I mentioned, we've got Mark from Progressive Property, we've got Rachel from Mortgage Advice Bureau, we've got Alex from Zoopla, and we've got Mark from Benham & Reeves. I've got a whole rift of questions covering lots of different sections, so we'll just jump straight into it. A question coming straight to you, Mark, at Benham's. What do overseas investors find appealing about London, and which markets are particularly buoyant at the moment?
Thank you very much, Stuart. So I think overseas investors, when they look at London, I think they look at London as an asset class in itself. It's, a lot of people view it as a trophy asset. It's a trophy location, let's be honest. The good thing with London is it's transparent, number one, so no one can take it from you. Everything you can see is online and it's yours. No one's going to change the law and take your property. And I think that's a key driver that people like London. So it's a landmark city, it's a trophy location. And the reason I think it's a trophy location is because generally property prices remain quite solid. If you look, especially if you look at what's happened, I mean, the other Mark, because it confused me, the other Mark talked about how prices have been challenging over the last, let's be honest, 5 to 7 years. But if you look at what's happened, London prices, super prime came off a bit, but actually property in London has been quite flat. And so I think a lot of overseas investors, I was in Hong Kong 2 weeks ago, are now back in the market because they think outside London has appreciated like mad for lots of reasons that everybody talks about, work from home and all of that. And actually London did nothing. London stayed flat for the last 6 to 7 years. And I think a lot of people are looking at London and thinking, actually, there's value here now. And I genuinely think there's value. It's coupled, the value in terms of capital gain is coupled with the strong rental yield. Because let's be honest, yields in London are anywhere from 3 to 5%. No, I can't get 10 to 15%. Unfortunately, that's impossible in London. But you have it coupled with hopefully capital growth, which we're going to see. So actually, I think that's why a lot of overseas investors find it appealing. I'm sure Rebecca's going to talk about the ease that you can get loans, even though rates are slightly higher, but you can definitely get loans very easily and at decent loan to values. And if you're on a yield of 5%, then I think it stacks up very well for an overseas investor. Second thing was which markets are particularly buoyant. We really like, and I personally really like, emerging locations, those that are slightly further out, regeneration, things that have like Crossrail on it. So things that Stuart talks about, Hayes Village, I think is really good. It's on Crossrail of Barratt's developments. I mean, but equally, the traditional prime prestige boroughs like Kensington and Chelsea, Knightsbridge, Mayfair, they're always going to continue to be popular, but the yields will be lower. So, where I view you should go is particularly buoyant are going to be outside areas because of the yields.
Thanks, Bob. That's exactly where we're following the land trend as well. So we're looking at opportunities to purchase more land and to bring more regeneration in those key locations from zones 3 to 5, where you really unlock that value.
Yeah.
We're able to build a little bit quicker than we are in central London. We're able to keep the costs down, but we're also able to take advantage of the improving infrastructures as well across the capital. So you mentioned the Crossrail. It's not often that these projects come about, and we've seen rentals skyrocket in Hayes off the back of that new infrastructure.
I didn't add that, Stuart, just to let people know in case they think rents have done well. We're still seeing a red hot market. Last year, we saw average rent increase across our book. So we managed 3,500 properties. We saw an average rental increase of 14%. The top one was 48% increase in rent. And that was because we had 4 people bidding for it. I mean, the market in London continues to be as hot as ever. And I think those rental yields are really showing it. Sorry.
Perfect. Great stuff. So we're heading over to Rachel now. So Rachel, with mortgage interest rates being higher than they were, is now a good time to buy, and will things go back to normal? Perhaps also, what do you think normal is?
Yeah, the normal is definitely the hot question at the moment. And I think it's very fair to say that the current market is what we're going to see for some time to come. We had this amazing period over the last few years where rates were extraordinarily low. And if you've been following the market as long as I have, I've been doing this for 20 years, but following it for longer, rates have always been at a much higher rate than what we've seen previously. So what we're seeing today is very good rates. And as you said earlier, lenders are wanting to lend. So although we may have seen some more Bank of England increases over the last few months and potentially more to come, lenders' rates are actually going down. And we're seeing this very much on the investment side as well. Lenders want to lend, they see and have the appetite for buy-to-let investors, whether domestic or international, and they do want to support them. So are we expecting to see massive drops over the next 3-6 months? Most likely not. I would probably expect that what we're seeing today will be the trend for the next few years, but it is still very, very competitive rates. Seeing rates in Bank of England's of 0.25 in our industry was actually terrifying to see that for so long, because we could see that it just wasn't stable or sustainable. So where we are today is a much better place for the whole economy, but we'll continue to be at that rate for some time to come.
So Rachel, at the Mortgage Advice Bureau, obviously you have a wide panel of lenders. What sort of interest rates are we seeing at the moment, perhaps for sort of set, 2-year fixed rates, and how does it vary from residential to buy-to-let?
Yeah, so there's a lot of things that get taken into account when we're looking at rates, from the loan to value, so how much deposit versus the property price. At the moment, if we were to say on a difference between a residential and a buy-to-let, if you would take the same loan to value, there's probably about a 0.6 to 0.75% increase on a buy-to-let than a residential. But there's a lot of factors that come into rates. So like I say, we've got loan to value, if it's domestic, if it's international, income structures, property type, all these different things. So buy-to-let rates can be varying anything from mid to late threes all the way upwards, depending on how complex the case is. It is very much individual circumstances, and that's the crucial thing. There's a lot of people still thinking the rates are where they were end of September, October, where people were hearing these terrifying 6-7% interest rates. That probably only sat around for about 3 weeks. We saw them dramatically reduce back down, and the average is sitting around the 4% mark.
It's funny, isn't it, Rachel? The headlines always report the bad news, but don't kind of often skip over the fact that the rates are actually getting better, and there are more products in the market.
Without a doubt, we saw lenders return back to the market, bar one, which had actually pulled out previously because they were outside their service levels. Most lenders that pulled their rates when we had the mini budget returned to the market within less than 48 hours. And actually, we've just been seeing more lenders coming back at higher loan to values, better income multiples, better stress testing on investment properties. But on average, we're seeing about 15 to 20 rate reductions on lenders per week. And like you say, the media never covers that because it's too much good news. They don't want to advertise that, but they will advertise the one lender that increases that week maybe. And it is definitely a rate war. Lenders don't have much movement. So you are finding the top lender is moving between different lenders quite quickly because they are always trying to beat each other, which is actually a really good investment market for your landlords, because actually lenders are going to start pipping each other. And what we might see, although the Bank of England probably isn't going to be on a trajectory of low for some time, lenders' rates are just going to be wavering below that for some time to come, because they do have the appetite for it, and they've also got the money for it as well.
So I know through COVID and as we came out of the pandemic, there was quite a lot of pressure on the lenders and brokers as far as processing applications. And obviously with investors, it's really key to be able to jump on those opportunities when they arise and you make the decision. So have you seen the time for applications and the service improve?
Dramatically. So we are probably back down to our normal service levels. So residential applications are going through in less than 14 days. And investor ones in less than about 19 to 20 days from full application to offer out with a solicitor. So we are back to our normal service level agreements, which is great. One thing I would always urge to anybody residential or investment, is be organised. Get speaking to your broker way before you're even going to start looking at these opportunities, because they do come up very, very quickly. And then it does feel like there's a lot of pressure to get things turned around quickly, where actually most of our clients that are investors, we've been working for a long time. We already know that whole client file inside out. We might need an up-to-date couple of documents, but we can usually proceed within a matter of hours, if not a day or two, to get it submitted into a lender. And that's the crucial bit for any investor.
The long and short of it is, if the client is qualified and proceedable, then when you come to look at a product, when you come into the marketing suites, then you're able to make a decision on the spot. Whereas if you have to then go away and look at your application with your broker, then perhaps when you come back, the properties that you're looking at won't be available. So it's really important to be prepared.
Definitely. And we do find that majority of our clients have completely been pre-qualified, if not already agreed in principle. Everything's ready. We've got the whole file, all the documents on file. So if they find what they like when they come on site, they can proceed there and then. And it is literally just as instructing a solicitor and pressing submit to the lender. Makes it very much more easier.
So top tip there, if you want the best deal, make sure that you get qualified before you go shopping.
100%.
Great, thanks, Rachel. So we'll head over to Alex at Zoopla. So obviously, Alex, you have some great insight into the market and the buying trends across the market at the moment. What do you see as the biggest opportunity for investors over the next 5 years?
Yeah, hi Stuart. Thanks for that. I think in terms of investment opportunities, I think Mark Homer touched on it during his presentation, that actually some of the uncertainty that we've had over the last 6 months or so actually helps create opportunity, particularly for investors who are looking at trying to spot those opportunities. And I think something that Mark touched on really well as well is we at Zoopla look at the fundamentals of the market. And the fundamentals are that there is a shortage of housing stock available in this country. We do not build enough houses, and therefore that creates huge demand in both the sales market and the rental market. I guess the big shift that we've seen at Zoopla over the last 6 months is obviously with the end of the Help to Buy scheme that was available in London. But also with the increase in interest rates and the pressures on cost of living at the moment, we're finding that some potential first-time buyers have been essentially sort of forced out of the buying market, and so that's created a further draw on demand for people looking to rent. So those fundamentals, as we say, are that there isn't enough rental stock in London. And there's huge demand, particularly as we've sort of gone post-pandemic. What we saw at the beginning of the pandemic was, as people were able to work from home a little bit more, a lot of people chose to perhaps move out of central London and move a bit further afield. But actually, subsequently, we've seen people coming back into London as more and more people look to return to the city. And actually, I think I was looking at some statistics recently that showed that actually the number of jobs in London today is almost identical to the number of jobs in Q1 2020 pre-pandemic. So we can see obviously employment is high, demand is therefore high, and that creates the opportunity. I also think that landlords are looking at perhaps innovating a little bit more through diversity of product, whether that be as Mark suggested, where can you add value to property and unlock an investment that way, versus actually some landlords who opt for more of a turnkey solution, which you'd get with a Barratt property, where that property is ready to move in, low maintenance. You've got the IKEA furniture options available. So actually, it's relatively low work really for an investor, and they can have the confidence in those deals that you've demonstrated. So I think those fundamentals are there. And obviously, one thing that we do know, and I think myself and my esteemed colleagues on the call have all been in this industry for long enough to know that actually it's a really safe investment in terms of property. And people will be looking at other asset classes, whether that be the stock market right now, currencies, crypto, whatever your vice is in terms of investment. And actually, property time and time again is a very safe, secure investment, particularly in the City of London.
So some really good points there, Mark. And I think you're right. When we see uncertainty in other asset classes, and we've certainly seen that over the last week or so in the banking sector, that people do look at property as more as sort of safe as houses investment, where it is a cash flow positive investment, but something that's really bricks and mortar as well. And I think the other important thing to consider is, if you're looking at investment, this isn't a market to be jumping in and out of. This is a market to look at sort of medium to long term. And one of the really important considerations is, if you're renting at the moment, you really don't have much opportunity to lock in your costs long term. So your rental contract may be 1 year or perhaps 2 or 3 years if you're lucky. But landlords are really, really keen on pushing those rental yields as high as possible. So it's really important to consider the long-term opportunities with purchasing a property. So you can lock in a really attractive mortgage rate. You know where you're at for the next 5 years, and you can manage that risk medium to long term. And the other thing you mentioned as well, Alex, is when people are investing into the properties and looking to get those properties rented out, it's really important to have that turnkey solution and very little to worry about as a landlord. So whether it's buying from Barratt Homes, you do get a 5-star customer service aftercare, but we also have warranties in place to take care of the properties. That's as important as having full service management agents such as Benham & Reeves, who can take care of the property handover, do snagging, make sure that the property is all ready, but also have the property to let out straight away. So we'll head over to Mark now. So Mark Homer, with property prices significantly higher in the south of the country, why should you invest in London rather than cheaper alternatives up north? That's a favourite, isn't it?
I think that timing is underrated. It's very difficult to time markets, including property markets, but it's so important. And when you get into a market, or the point at which you get into a market, determines your overall return in such a big way. The point that was made earlier about since 2016. Really, there's been not a lot of capital growth in London, but there's been lots elsewhere. I think it's important that point is really made, because if you go into London or lots of areas of London now, you're probably buying in at the right level, at the right price, versus other areas have already had the growth. And they're probably not going to grow as much, just because London, in a way, is playing catch up to the rest of the country. Sort of sounds strange, because it's counterintuitive. It normally happens the other way around. The other sort of benefits of buying more valuable properties, i.e., within London, because you buy a sort of house or a flat, it might be sort of triple the price of a property up north, or could be even more than that. You need to buy a third as many properties to get the same overall property value. So say you want to have a portfolio of 500,000, you might do that in London with, I don't know, 1 or 2 properties, depending on what yield you're looking at. And up north, you may need 6 or 8. So, the sort of, we have a lot of properties to manage where we are in Peterborough, because I need to get our overall portfolio to a certain level to make it worthwhile. Well, the management of all of those extra properties is a lot more intensive. So you'd be able to manage a lot less properties for the same value. And clearly the capital growth, is a function, a percentage of the overall property value that you've got in your portfolio. Finally, I just think, there's a lot more professionals and sort of people on the move, probably a better employment market, or definitely a better employment market around London. So I think you'll get probably less bad debt in your portfolio, and more tenants that are actually going to pay your rent.
Good points there, Mark. And I think also, if you consider London compared to some of the second tier cities, one suburb in London has the same population as Liverpool, Manchester, or Newcastle. So there's really that opportunity to maximise the rental opportunity for the property, reducing vacant periods and maximising the rental returns as well. So we had a question from live from the webinar with regards to are there any schemes for NHS workers? So at Barratt Homes, across all of our developments, not just in London but across the country, we have launched a key worker deposit contribution scheme. So it covers NHS, but it also covers school teachers or people working in education. It covers police force, fire service, and lots of other key workers. And what we're doing is, so for every £20,000 in the property purchase price, we will contribute £1,000 towards the deposit for that property. So as an example, for a £325,000 property, you would qualify for a contribution of up to £16,250. So we're doing our best to support our key workers across the country. But there are lots of different incentives and lots of different schemes across the development. If you just go onto Google and Google Barratt London schemes, then it will give you all of the different schemes that we have live at the moment. So heading back over to Mark. Mark, very interesting topical question. Is buy-to-let a better investment than stocks and shares, and which provides a better return?
That me? Or is that Mark?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, that's over to Mark von Grunder. My
okay. I don't mind. You can take it, but I'll take it. My view is that actually, yes, if you look in 2022, the FTSE returned about 3%. House prices in the UK, while they were less buoyant, but they still rose by 4% plus the rental yield. So on average, that was about 7% in total, and that's not taking into account if you have finance on it. Our prediction over the next year is we should see capital growth of anywhere from 4 to 5%. We're trying to be quite conservative, and we expect to see rental growth of about 6%. I would just mention that I'm an investor myself, and I took my own advice recently during COVID. So I actually completed on something today in Northwest London, a 1-bedroom flat. It's phase 1 regeneration area, and I'm going to expect a 6% yield on that. And I think you can get those kind of yields if you go further out. We have, which I'm sure maybe Stuart's going to talk about, we're doing something with Barratt at the moment that's showing a 5% net yield on a couple of their schemes that we're going to have coming out. Now, that's 5% net. That's with Stuart's beaten us down to no fees. We're throwing in a furniture pack, and you don't pay service charge or ground rent. Obviously, ground rent, no, but no service charge. So it's giving you 5% net. I think that's pretty enticing to a first-time investor into the market. I really do. And you can easily get finance on it because it's one of Barratt's schemes. I just think it shows, in terms of, is it better than putting your money in shares and putting it in alternatives like gold? It's not a solid, tangible asset. It's not as, liable to the fluctuations. So, as I said, I followed my own advice and done it this year, completing today. And we're offering this deal with Barratt because we know the yields are there.
Well, Mark, congratulations on the completion. That's exciting. But I think so. Obviously, the one of the key advantages of purchasing property for investment is that you can leverage that very, very easily. Whereas I know there are vehicles to leverage stocks, but it's very high risk. And really, for us partnering with Benham & Reeves for the likes of the rental guarantee, it's first and foremost about making sure that it's hassle-free for an investor. But secondly, making sure that you don't have to worry about anything for the next couple of years. So you've got two great partners in the London market, Barratt Homes developing great developments, Benham & Reeves experts in taking care of that and vetting the rental clients, making sure everything's ticked and from a legislative perspective, landlord risk is covered. So it's a really neat concept. And as you said, Mark, we're offering that across many of our schemes across London. So heading back over to Rachel for a little more finance advice. Is it easy for an overseas investor to get a mortgage? And what steps should be taken for anyone overseas who needs a mortgage to invest?
Yeah, so there's lots of lenders that still are lending to overseas clients. It's always going to be a huge market for us in London, first and foremost. It's probably been one of the biggest drivers for quite a few years. It comes down to everything saying being organised. It's getting that research done first, speaking to your brokers, looking at the numbers. I'll probably say the timing to get a overseas mortgage out is probably about 7 to 9 days longer than in a domestic client. But there is some really interesting lenders, and we did find through COVID, a lot of those lenders had to drop back because of what was going on, the restrictions that were put on them. They're all back live in the market with competitive rates. It is literally because a lot of it comes down to the paperwork that is required by the lender in the UK, doing that pre-work, getting everything pre-agreed, fully qualified. It then becomes the same as if you're a domestic client.
So again, that key message is be prepared, get your ducks in a line before you start going shopping. But also there's lots of options, even things like Sharia compliant lending, lots of opportunities across lots of different lenders at the moment.
Definitely, and that's the thing is we've got some fantastic lenders that will do things. They can cross securitize between their UK properties and their overseas properties, or look at their assets overseas and do custody loans. There's lots of different things that are available for these clients. It's purely just starting the conversation, look at what's available.
Good times all round. Okay, thanks, Rachel. So heading over to Alex again from Zoopla. What are the best investment areas in London to receive high rental or capital growth returns in the next 5 years from your research?
Brilliant. That's looking into my crystal ball, isn't it? So thanks for that question. But I think first and foremost, we always look for connectivity. So I think we've talked about infrastructure projects already, such as Crossrail. You know, obviously that runs right from Reading on the west of London, right through over into Essex and through the heart of the city. So clearly that's unlocked other areas of London and the city and Greater London in terms of commuting and travelling around the city. Whether it's sort of new infrastructure or the existing overground, underground lines. Excuse me, I'm going to be interrupted by my daughter, so that's a live recording. Large infrastructure projects make a big difference. And also we look a lot at net migration, and net migration into London actually peaks at an age group of between 20 and 35. Sorry, I'm getting a cuddle now. Excuse me, darling. I'm very busy right now.
Working with children and animals.
So I think really what we're looking at is a sort of an age cohort of 20 to 30-year-olds really. And I think factor that into your planning of, that's a peak group of renters. So think about that as your demographic, the products, the furnishings, and the type of property, and of course the amenities then that cohort would want to live around. Of course, actually we see that flats are relatively good value compared to houses in many areas in London, because the capital growth hasn't been as strong there over the last decade. So again, you can achieve some really good rental yields out of flats and apartments. And now at the moment, sort of I've talked a bit about post-pandemic. We're actually seeing we're seeing a real mix. We had a first wave after the pandemic of people moving into central London, and we saw a big spike in rents at that point. We're now seeing a second wave as people look to more affordable rents compared to the centre of London, and that's now seeing rents rise fast in sort of zones 4, 5, and 6 on the periphery. So I think we've talked already. There's already strong yields in and around London, but there's definitely opportunities for rental growth as we've been seeing.
Perfect, good insight. Thank you, Alex, and our assistant. Mark Homer, so heading over to you. I was going to ask you to call the bottom of the market, but that's a somewhat challenging request. Instead, I'll ask you, so for people looking at starting their investment career in the London property market, what advice would you give them to take those first steps and what should their short and long-term goals be?
Well, I think if you really want to, make this into a career and become an investor, I started out sort of getting into the industry. So I started out working for a company that was actually sourcing properties and developing them into investor units. So, it depends on sort of how involved this person wants to be, but getting into the market, working in a estate agency, or maybe, in lettings, or for, maybe, a sort of commercial agent, who's got, a lot of sort of investment experience, that can be a really good way to sort of drive knowledge transfer. That's sort of how I did it, and just to get yourself around other investors who are actually doing it, rather than I don't know, talking about it, or maybe wanting to do it and having lots to say in a pub, but actually they sort of haven't invested very much, which is a critical thing, I think. I think it's quite important when you're wanting to get into sort of new markets like this to really do it, and to sort of breathe it, and just sort of cut your teeth. So that would involve actually just buying some stuff, and making some mistakes. The early properties that I bought certainly weren't the best in my portfolio, but it got me going, and it's almost the sort of ready, fire, aim principle. If you can get started and you actually make the mistakes quickly, then you get onto the good stuff. And if you're very early, you want to make sort of smaller mistakes, and maybe not, sort of not let them become amplified. But I think, if you can sort of really focus on that, you will drive your growth to much greater heights over time. If you if you get started earlier and you surround yourself with those sorts of people. Yeah,
Mark, I think that's super insight. Thank you very much. And I think, in this day and age, there's so much research available at investors' fingertips. It's really important to do that research beforehand, and make a plan for yourself and talk to the experts. So there's a lot of advice, and there's a lot of information across all these different partner portals as well. So whether it's looking through Zoopla, you can see lots of insight into your local areas. You can see lots about price movements, potential growth and rentals, and lots of trend analysis there. You can talk to Benham and Reeves about the rental market, get some idea of where the demand is at the moment, and likewise see from the finance side where the attractive deals are, and how to get the best out of the finance market as well. So just some really good stuff in there. And just one final thing I wanted to highlight before I introduce the new partnership. So at Barratt, we are really focused on sustainability, and we have some really high targets for our corporate and environmental impact over the next 5 years. But we've also been working with Salford University on a new research home, and really testing out new technologies across all of the different properties to see what works and what reduces those costs for homeowners, and also the environmental impact. So some really exciting stuff. Go onto the Barratt London website, check out the sustainability links, and you'll see all that exciting work that we're doing. That's not just for reducing the cost, but also there are EPC ratings that are quite important for renting out properties as well. Just very quickly, Mark, so what are the EPC ratings that buy-to-let property have to have these days?
Well, it needs to be an E, but very, very shortly it's going to need to be a C, which it's a big deal. There's a lot of properties up and down the country that are not going to meet that standard, and there's going to be big remediation costs. So it's insulation. You might need to change your boiler. There might be there are other issues with you maybe put solar panels on. If you buy a new property, it's automatically going to be better than it'll be a C at a minimum, but I would imagine with Barratt it'll be an A or a B, and therefore you know, not only are you sort of dealing with the imminent legislation, which is going to be here. Well, we don't know when it is because the government keep changing the goalposts, but they originally said it was going to be 2025. You know, we're on a trajectory here where, you know, this is not going to stop at C. I imagine the sort of end goal is that they're going to make us all go to a B or an A eventually. Who knows where that is? So, you know, if you can future-proof your investment, which I think you can with a new build, I think that helps. Another big thing, obviously, tenants, cost of living, paying bills is a big deal now. Gas and electric has tripled. And, you know, that's a huge thing for many individuals. On a new property where the EPC is particularly good, I think you're going to magnify the savings in gas and electric bills, which is very attractive to a tenant. Very, very attractive, and you know, it's just going to give them more money, more spare money to be able to A, live in the property, but B, pay your rent and pay those rent increases. So I think it's a big deal.
So it's better value for money for the tenants, but also there are even some lenders across the market who are considering new build as having a lower cost of running and therefore being able to afford a higher borrowing as well. Is that right, Rachel?
Yeah, definitely. And also they're offering more competitive rates in a lot of cases now as well. Lenders have also been asked regarding sustainability to make this encouragement move forward. So most lenders are offering slightly cheaper rates if it's got a EPC of an A or a B. And
I guess Mark von Grunder, you're seeing tenants are wanting obviously to keep the costs down, but there's definitely an environmental consideration these days, isn't there?
I think environmental consideration is interesting. It's interesting about the 2025 date because I'm pretty sure they'll kick it down the road to 2026, 2027. But even if they, the thing I would say to people is, if you're a landlord and your property is a D, and you think you can get an EPC inspector to come in and change it to a C, which I have clients already saying, I'm sure I can get it changed. It's not going to happen because people will be all over it. And if you look at what the fiasco that happened with EICRs a couple of years ago, where everybody did nothing, those very efficient landlords we said did it, they fixed the EICRs and got it all checked. Those ones that didn't, you couldn't get an electrician out for love nor money unless you were paying through the nose. So my strongest advice is, if you own something, go and get it done now and get the repairs done, because if you don't, you are going to pay through the nose. I hear there's companies already setting up to do windows, boilers, all of those kinds of things, and the cost will be massive. And as Stuart said, environmental is now a really big thing for tenants. People genuinely, in London, when our general tenant base, maybe they're not so precious about another £200-300 a year in electricity and gas when they're paying, £500-600 a week. But the fact of the matter is, people want to live in something that is new, that they don't have, weak, windy windows and backing. So I think it's really important today to do that. And you should, that's why we recommend new build. That's what we generally recommend.
So thank you to all of the panelists. And we've heard so many good reasons to consider investing into new build properties. But at the end of the day, the market is always changing, and it's very difficult to call the bottom of the market or the top of the market. But I always liken it to a game of Monopoly. There's lots of ways to win, but if you're not playing, then you're certainly not in for a very good chance. So absolutely, take advantage of the insight and the expertise that we brought you this evening. Contact all of our panelists through their various websites, and we will send out some information afterwards to follow up for people who have attended the webinar. But thank you to Mark Homer from Progressive Properties, really insightful and great experience there from your own portfolio. Rachel, some really good advice there from the finance market and lending opportunities. Mark von Grunder, thank you so much for joining us from Benham & Reeves, some really exciting products, and don't forget that rental guarantee as well. And Alex, some really great insight from Zoopla and a little guest appearance as well. So thank you so much. This is probably where it all goes terribly wrong, but I'm going to try and share my screen and introduce to you a very exciting partnership that we've just launched across the country, particularly starting in London. You may have seen it in the recent press. We were in the FT and some various other publications over the weekend. But we have partnered with IKEA as the UK's largest furnishing supplier. And I'll show you a little video just to give you some insight. And at that point, we will end the webinar. But we welcome you and invite you down to our sales and marketing suites. Please do make an appointment. And as I said, please do take advantage of the introductions we've made this evening to our panel experts. So thank you to everybody for joining us. Have a lovely evening and take care.
The collaboration between IKEA and Barratt London is amazing. We talk to the same customer, and I think this is a big opportunity for us through Barratt London to create a better everyday life for the many people in London.
It's a meeting of minds, people who really want to get the best out of the space. It's a rare opportunity for these two brands to come together to really deliver further choice for the homeowner.
Here at IKEA, we've collaborated with Barratt London to create 2 show homes and 3 easy-to-buy furniture packs so that Barratt London buyers can furnish their homes with confidence. People want their homes to look fantastic, but they're often not really sure how to achieve this. What we're able to do is show them how our furniture will look in their homes before they've even moved in. Barratt London buyers will be able to have a 1-hour meeting with one of our remote interior designers. They can customize the packs that we offer, or our interior designers can come up with something that's unique to them and reflects their personality and lifestyle.
The great thing with the collaboration between the UK's largest house builder and the UK's largest furniture provider is that there's a great range of choice offered from both, whether that's location of the home or the individual style that's created by the interior designers at IKEA. It's not only for a first-time purchaser, but also for a person who's looking to do a buy to let, or indeed someone who's upsizing or downsizing. It's a really one-stop shop for everyone.
I think this is a win-win for both organisations. With IKEA expertise and Barratt London's house building expertise, we can come together and co-create an opportunity which will meet our ambitious sustainability goals.
The similarity between Barratt London and IKEA also runs deeper in terms of the sustainability is at the forefront of everything we do. So the materials that are used in our build, together with the reducing of the energy consumption within the apartment, all the way through to the way that IKEA approach the material sustainably sourced, but also the ability to evolve the product as you grow, so you don't have to throw away and start again. It evolves over time and with your lifestyle.
I think our interiors have to work really hard. There are many functions that we're trying to carry out within the same space. So we also need our furniture to be able to be used in a number of ways. And our packages have really captured that.
2 organisations coming together to find a collaboration to make a superb offer. It's absolutely fantastic we've been able to build this bridge.
This collaboration has been something that's been worked on for a very long time, and the reason for that is that everyone wants to get it right, working up the attention to the detail to make sure it's a seamless approach.
Buying a home is exciting, but it's also stressful. Furnishing a home is exciting, but it's also daunting. So here we're bringing together Barratt London's building expertise, our home furnishing expertise, to hopefully make a really easy and affordable solution for buyers.
I'm really proud that we've been able to bring this collaboration together and have this fantastic offer. The uniqueness what this will bring to each individual home will be absolutely incredible.
We're really excited to see it launch. It's been many months in the making, but finally we're here and we're ready to go.
I think people are going to love the simplicity of it, being able to come in, choose your apartment, and then have that personalisation done with an interior designer. I'm very excited about this collaboration, particularly in spring. It's a time for fresh, new ideas, but also the collaboration makes complete sense, and there's no better time to do it than right now.
Thank you very much for joining us this evening. A really exciting collaboration there with IKEA. We invite you down to the marketing suites where you can see there's really rich interiors. You can go to IKEA, see the Barratt London packages in place, talk to their designers and get some great solutions both for investors and for owner occupiers. So thank you to our panel again for this evening. I hope you've enjoyed the webinar this evening. I hope you found it insightful and perhaps got a few tips. If you have any other questions, we haven't got through all of the questions this evening, please do reach out to either ourselves or our experts and we'll do our best to support you through that investment journey together. So wish you all well, have a great evening and thanks again for joining us to our panelists as well.